Emily Carter woke up before sunrise, just like every other weekday. The city of Chicago still slept outside her apartment window as she made her usual cup of coffee and checked her emails. She loved her job at Harlow & Co., a growing marketing firm known for its bold ideas. For 5 years, Emily had been one of the unseen engines behind the company's success. She was the kind of person who didn't seek credit, she just worked hard and delivered. That morning, she felt tired but proud. Her latest campaign had gone viral, bringing in new clients. She even allowed herself a small smile as she entered the elevator to the 14th floor. The office was quiet, filled with the soft hum of computers and the smell of fresh paper. She greeted a few coworkers, unaware that everything was about to change before lunch. At 10:30 a.m., her manager, Brian, appeared at her desk. His usual cheerful tone was missing. "Emily, could you come to my office for a minute?" he said. His eyes looked uneasy. She followed him, wondering if something had gone wrong with the campaign. The moment she stepped inside, she noticed the HR representative sitting in the corner. Her heart skipped. Something wasn't right. Brian cleared his throat. "Emily," he began, not meeting her eyes, "there's been some restructuring. The company's moving in a new direction, and unfortunately, your position has been eliminated." Emily blinked, not sure she heard correctly. "Eliminated," she repeated softly. "But my team just launched the biggest campaign of the quarter." "I know," he said quickly, "and your work has been excellent. This isn't personal, it's just business." That phrase, "just business," hit like a cold wave. She wanted to ask more, to fight back, but she could tell it wouldn't matter. The HR woman slid a folder toward her termination papers, benefits, and final pay details. It was all so clinical. So final. Emily stood there for a moment, holding the folder, her hands trembling slightly. "How long do I have to clear my desk?" she asked. Brian avoided her gaze. By the end of the day, she nodded, silent. No tears, no anger, just a hollow feeling spreading through her chest. She walked out of the office, her coworkers glancing up from their screens, pretending to be busy. The unspoken rule was clear. Don't make eye contact with the one who's been let go at her desk. She packed her things into a small box, her coffee mug, a framed photo of her parents, a few notebooks, and the little plant she'd kept alive for years. The room seemed to shrink around her as she tried to keep her breathing steady. When she finally stood, she looked back one last time. This had been her second home, her place of purpose. Now it felt like someone else's world entirely. Outside, the air was sharp and cold. The streets were busy, but everything sounded distant. The honking cars, the chatter, the rhythm of city life moving on without her. She found a bench near the river, sat down, and stared at the skyline. The wind tugged at her hair as her thoughts raced. She had rent due in 10 days. Her savings were small. There was no backup plan. Still, she refused to cry in public. She took a deep breath and told herself she would figure it out. She always had. Hours passed without her realizing. The sun dipped behind the buildings and the streetlights flickered on. Her phone vibrated once, then again, unknown number. She ignored it. Probably spam or a wrong call. Then it buzzed again, and again. By the time she checked, there were 10 missed calls, then 20, then 30. Each one from the same unknown number. Confusion replaced her sadness. Who would call her this many times? Her phone rang again, the same number flashing. She hesitated, then let it go to voicemail. Another buzz, then silence. Then another. By midnight, the count reached 52 missed calls. She finally opened the message that came right after the last call. Her eyes scanned it once, then twice. "Emily Carter, this is Daniel Reed. I'm the CEO of Harlow & Co. I think there's been a mistake." For a moment, she just stared at the screen. The CEO. She had never even met him. Why would someone like him call her? What kind of mistake could possibly matter now? She felt a mix of confusion and disbelief. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone was trying to be cruel. Still, a part of her small but stubborn hoped it was real. Because if it was, maybe everything she'd lost that day wasn't truly gone. Emily put down her phone and stared out the window. The city lights reflected in her eyes, a blend of exhaustion and faint curiosity. Her heart still hurt, but a spark of something in certainty, hope, maybe both stirred inside her. And though she didn't know it yet, that single message would change everything. Emily Carter didn't sleep well that night. Her phone had been buzzing nonstop, but she refused to call back. The thought of a CEO taking an interest in her situation felt surreal, almost unbelievable. Daniel Reed, the man whose name now floated in her mind, was supposed to be a distant figure, the kind of person she only saw in press releases or company newsletters. Yet here he was, reaching out personally, insisting there had been a mistake. The next morning, she walked through the chilly streets of Chicago. Her coffee warm in her hands, but her thoughts were colder. How much could this really matter? She had been let go. That was final. Yet curiosity, the tiniest flicker of hope, pushed her to reconsider. Maybe she should hear him out. Daniel Reed, meanwhile, was pacing his office on the 25th floor of Harlow & Co. He had spent the entire morning reviewing the situation. Emily's dismissal had been rushed, driven by a chain of poor decisions from middle management. Her name had never come up for discussion, her work never properly reviewed. But when Daniel saw her campaigns, he was stunned. Every project she had touched was not just competent, it was brilliant. The strategy, the creativity, the results, it all spoke of someone extraordinary. And she had been gone. He called her again, this time leaving a calmer message. "Emily, please, I need to speak with you. Not through emails or texts. Just meet me. I owe you that." Emily hesitated, her mind a swirl of fear, doubt, and something she couldn't name. Was this a trap? A last-minute PR move? Or maybe, just maybe, someone finally recognized her value. By late morning, she found herself standing outside a small riverside cafe. She had agreed to meet him, but had no idea what to expect. The cafe was quiet, cozy, the smell of fresh bread and coffee comforting. She scanned the room nervously. Daniel arrived moments later. He looked different than she imagined, not the distant, untouchable CEO in tailored suits, but a man in casual clothing, sleeves rolled up, eyes alert and genuinely concerned. He greeted her with a small smile. "Emily, thank you for coming." She nodded, unsure what to say. You called 52 times, she said softly, half amused, half wary. "I realize that looks crazy," he admitted, his voice honest. "But I couldn't let it go. I had to make sure you were okay, and I had to correct a mistake that was entirely mine." Emily's chest tightened. Hearing him speak like this, so sincere, made her pulse quicken. She had expected arrogance, maybe a rehearsed apology. Instead, she found genuine regret, and perhaps something else, a curiosity about her she couldn't quite define. Daniel leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "Your work at Harlow, it was more than just good, was exceptional, and no one saw it properly. I didn't know until now. You deserved better, and I want to make it right." Kimberly swallowed. Her mind raced through memories of late nights, endless presentations, and the quiet pride she had felt when a campaign succeeded. And now all that effort had been dismissed, erased in a single meeting. Yet here was someone, the CEO no less, acknowledging it. "You could offer me a job back," she said quietly, "but that doesn't change the months I wasted being overlooked." "It's not about pity," Daniel said immediately. "It's recognition. You matter, Emily. Your work matters. And I wanted you to know that." For a moment, the cafe seemed suspended in time. The river outside flowed steadily. People passed by. The world continued. But Emily felt herself pulled into a strange, intimate bubble. He wasn't speaking as a boss, or even as a CEO. He was speaking as a person who had finally realized the truth and wanted to make amends. They talked for over an hour, started with work, naturally her campaigns, the challenges she faced, the clients she had won, but gradually it shifted. Daniel asked about her ambitions, her dreams, the kind of life she wanted beyond the office walls. Emily, who usually guarded herself, found herself opening up. She laughed at small memories, shared frustrations she had never voiced. And Daniel listened, really listened, without interruption, without judgment. Emily noticed small things about him, the way he frowned when he was deep in thought, the way he smiled when something amused him, the way his attention never wavered. She had imagined CEOs as distant, untouchable figures. But he was human, approachable, unexpectedly kind. Daniel noticed things too. How Emily's hands moved when she explained her ideas. The spark in her eyes when she talked about marketing. As an art, the quiet determination that had carried her through years of being unnoticed. He realized he had misjudged his own company. But more importantly, he realized how rare someone like her was. And in that realization, he felt something unfamiliar, not attraction at first, but a growing awareness that she had become important in a way he hadn't expected. When the meeting ended, Daniel walked her to the door, hands in his pockets, the breeze tugging at their coats. "Emily, I owe you more than I can say. Please consider meeting me again. Not about work, just to talk." She paused, caught between skepticism and curiosity. She wanted to say no to protect herself from disappointment. But the sincerity in his eyes, the way he had listened, the way he had admitted fault, it was disarming. Maybe, she said, voice soft. "We'll see." As she walked away, the city felt different. The day no longer seemed heavy with loss. Instead, it carried a strange, tentative hope. Emily realized that her dismissal, painful as it had been, had led to something unexpected. She didn't yet know what would come of it, but the spark of possibility stirred in her heart. Meanwhile, Daniel returned to his office, the weight of responsibility still on his shoulders but tempered by relief. He had made a mistake, yes, but he had found her, and he wouldn't let this opportunity slip away. There was something about Emily Carter that mattered more than a campaign, more than recognition, more than the daily rush of business. And for the first time, both of them sensed that this encounter was more than just a professional correction. It was the start of something neither of them had anticipated, something quietly powerful that neither could ignore. The day ended, leaving Emily staring at her ceiling at home, her mind replaying every word, every glance, every tiny gesture. The unknown number that had first startled her now felt like the key to a door she hadn't realized existed. Sometimes, she thought, the world doesn't let go of you when you're meant to matter. And she had a feeling Daniel Reed was about to prove just how true that could be. Emily Carter couldn't stop thinking about the cafe meeting with Daniel Reed. His sincerity, his attention, the way he had listened to her everything, lingered in her mind. She spent the next few days walking through Chicago streets, coffee in hand, trying to make sense of the strange mixture of hope and hesitation inside her. She had been fired, yet here was the CEO personally reaching out, admitting his mistake. Part of her wanted to run back into the office and demand answers. Another part wanted nothing to do with it. When Daniel called again, she hesitated, but curiosity won. She agreed to meet him at a small park near the river, not an office this time. The sun was soft, the trees swaying gently. Daniel was already there, pacing lightly as if the walk itself helped him focus. His expression was serious, but there was an openness in his eyes she couldn't ignore. "Emily," he started immediately, as if the words had been waiting for this moment. "I've been reviewing everything. Your work, your campaigns, your contributions. You've been carrying so much without anyone realizing it. You should never have been fired. I want to make this right." Emily studied him, the lines of concern on his face, the genuine care in his tone. She had expected corporate formalities, an impersonal offer, but his words felt personal, almost intimate. "And how do you plan to do that?" she asked quietly. He smiled faintly. "I want to offer you your job back. A better position, recognition, and the freedom to lead projects your way." Emily shook her head. I don't want a job because someone finally noticed me. I want respect, Daniel. And that doesn't erase months of feeling invisible. He leaned back, taking a deep breath. I understand. I don't expect you to accept anything yet. But I do want you to know I see you, Emily. I see the effort, the talent, the drive. And I want to get to know you as a person, not just as an employee. His words caught her off guard. No CEO had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever noticed the person behind the work. Emily felt a mixture of disbelief and warmth. The air around them seemed charged with unspoken emotion, the kind that made a person pause and rethink everything they believed about chance encounters and new beginnings. They walked together along the river, talking about everything from mundane details to personal dreams. Daniel shared stories of growing up in a fast-paced corporate world, the pressures he faced and the mistakes he had made along the way. Emily spoke of her passion for marketing, her love for creating stories that mattered, and the frustration of being overlooked despite her dedication. With each word, the walls between them seemed to dissolve. Daniel wasn't just apologizing. He was connecting, listening, and responding in ways that made Emily feel understood. She laughed at moments she hadn't laughed in weeks. And for the first time since being fired, she felt a spark of genuine joy. At one point, Daniel stopped walking and turned to her. Emily, I have to admit something. I called you so many times because I realized I had made a terrible mistake. But it's more than that. In the short time I've seen your work and met you, I feel like you matter to me in ways I can't explain. Emily's heart skipped. She hadn't expected a confession, not from the CEO, not from anyone. Her chest tightened with a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. She wanted to step back, to protect herself. But her curiosity and something deeper, a quiet longing, kept her rooted. I don't know what to say, she murmured. Her mind raced, trying to understand the feelings stirring inside her. She had always been careful, never letting emotions override reason, yet here she was, caught off guard by a man who should have been untouchable and distant. You don't have to say anything now, Daniel replied gently. I just needed to be honest, and I want you to know. No pressure, no expectations, just me being honest about how I feel. The honesty in his voice disarmed her. It was raw, unpolished, and completely unlike the corporate facade she had expected. She realized that Daniel Reed wasn't just a CEO. He was a man who had made mistakes, who could admit them, and who could see her for more than her work. For the first time, Emily felt seen, truly seen. Her heart, still tender from being dismissed and overlooked, felt a cautious warmth. She realized that this wasn't just about a job or recognition, it was about connection, understanding, and the possibility of something more. As the afternoon faded into evening, they found themselves sitting on a bench, watching the city lights shimmer on the river. Daniel's hand brushed against hers accidentally, and neither pulled away. Emily felt a flutter, a small but undeniable acknowledgement of attraction and curiosity. She couldn't deny it. She was intrigued, perhaps even drawn to him. When it was time to part, Daniel walked her to her car. Emily, whatever you decide about the job or us, I want you to know you've changed something in me. Meeting you, talking to you, it matters. She nodded, a quiet smile forming on her lips. I'll think about it, she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of something more than just caution. That night, Emily lay in bed, her mind replaying every word, every glance, every subtle gesture. She realized she was thinking about Daniel in ways she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about the apology or the job offer, it was about him, his honesty, his attention, the way he had made her feel important when no one else had. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his office, looking out over the city. He couldn't stop thinking about her either, the way she had listened, the way she had spoken, the spark of defiance and confidence in her eyes. He had reached out to make amends, but he felt a connection he hadn't expected. It was personal now, something beyond work, beyond recognition. Days passed, and Emily continued her freelance work, keeping busy but constantly thinking of their conversations. Every call, every message, every shared laugh played on her mind. She felt a quiet tension, a pull toward something she couldn't yet define, and somewhere deep down, both of them knew that their story was far from over. What had started as a mistake, a sudden firing, was now the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter filled with honesty, connection, and the slow, quiet blossoming of something neither had expected but both now quietly hoped for by the end of the week. Emily realized that the offer of the job was no longer the focus. It was the man who had reached out, who had admitted his fault, who had spoken to her heart as much as to her mind. And she knew that soon she would have to decide not just about a career, but about a possibility that could change everything. It wasn't just about forgiveness or recognition anymore. It was about curiosity, attraction, and the undeniable feeling that sometimes a mistake could lead to something far more meaningful than anyone could predict. And as Emily prepared for another meeting with Daniel, she felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation. The lines between professional and personal had blurred, and she was ready to explore where this unexpected connection might lead. Sometimes, she thought, the right people show up in your life in the strangest ways. And the hardest days can open the doors to the most unexpected beginnings. Weeks passed since Emily Carter's first meetings with Daniel Reed. She had returned to freelance work, enjoying the freedom to take on projects that excited her. But her thoughts often drifted back to him. It wasn't just about the job offer or the apology anymore. It was about the man who had seen her. Truly seen her, in a way no one else had. Their messages had shifted from professional updates to casual conversations, then to longer calls about life, books, music, and memories. Each interaction was small, quiet, but it built a connection neither of them had expected. One rainy afternoon, Daniel called. "Emily, are you free for coffee?" he asked. There was no talk of jobs this time, no corporate agenda. Just a simple, sincere invitation. She hesitated for a moment, then agreed. She found herself standing outside their usual riverside cafe, the rain tapping gently against her coat. Daniel was already there, waiting under the awning, umbrella in hand. He smiled when he saw her, and something in her chest tightened. The man who had once been just a name on a phone now felt familiar, almost essential. They walked inside, shaking off the rain. The cafe was warm, filled with the scent of roasted coffee and baked goods. They took a quiet corner, and for a moment neither spoke. Just the sound of rain on the windows, the low hum of conversation, and the comfort of each other's presence filled the space. "Emily," Daniel said finally, his voice softer than she expected, "I keep thinking about the first time I met you at the cafe, about how quickly I realized that letting you go was the worst mistake I've ever made. And now, I keep thinking about what might happen if I hadn't called you at all." Emily looked at him, her mind replaying the memories of that day. The awkwardness of the first apology, the honesty in his eyes, the way he had leaned in to listen. She felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. "It wasn't just the calls," she said quietly. "It was you noticing me when no one else did." Daniel reached across the table, brushing her hand gently. "I don't usually do this," he admitted. "Call someone 52 times, chase them down, insist on meeting. But you were worth it. And I needed you to know that." Emily's heart skipped. She felt an unexpected flutter, a mix of nervousness and curiosity. It was strange to feel this way about someone she barely knew at first. Yet everything about Daniel, the way he listened, the way he spoke, the quiet intensity of his presence had drawn her in for the first time. They talked not about work, not about apologies, not about missed opportunities. They talked about themselves. Daniel spoke of his childhood, his dreams, the pressures of leading a company, and the moments of loneliness he rarely admitted to anyone. Emily shared her own stories, the challenges she faced in being recognized, the small victories she celebrated alone, and the dreams she kept private. Hours passed unnoticed. They laughed at each other's anecdotes, shared memories of favorite places, and even discussed the books and music that shaped them. Daniel found himself captivated not only by her words, but by her presence. The way her eyes lit up when she described something she loved. Emily noticed the warmth in his voice, the attentiveness in his gaze, and the subtle gestures that made him approachable, human, and deeply real. As the afternoon turned into evening, the conversation slowed. Neither wanted to leave, yet neither wanted to push too far. There was a quiet tension, a gentle awareness that something significant was growing between them. Emily realized she had been holding back, protecting her heart from disappointment. But with Daniel, the pull was undeniable. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice low and steady. "Emily, I know this is sudden. I know our connection started in a strange, even chaotic way. But I feel something here, something real. I want to explore it if you're willing." Emily's chest tightened. She had thought about him every day, imagined conversations, wondered what it might be like to spend time with someone who truly understood her. She felt a mixture of fear and excitement, a rush of emotion she couldn't ignore. I think I'd like that," she said softly, almost a whisper. The next few weeks were a dance of discovery. They met frequently, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for walks along the river, sometimes just to sit quietly and talk. Each meeting deepened their connection, each laugh and shared story building trust and affection. Daniel's professionalism faded into the background, leaving the man who could be kind, open, and sincere. Emily's caution slowly gave way to curiosity, warmth, and the thrill of unexpected companionship. Emily noticed small gestures that made her heart flutter, a hand brushing hers when reaching for the same cup of coffee, a thoughtful message during the day, the way he remembered small details she thought she had mentioned in passing. Daniel noticed her confidence, her humor, her intelligence, and the gentle way she navigated life despite disappointments. They began to feel like partners in a silent understanding, a connection that didn't require constant explanation, only presence. One evening, after a long walk through a quiet park, Daniel stopped and turned to her. "Emily, I can't promise this will be easy. Life will throw challenges at us. Work will demand our attention. Mistakes may happen again. But I can promise you, I want to face it all with you, if you'll let me." Emily felt a warmth spread through her, a certainty that she hadn't felt in years. She wanted to say yes, to step forward into something new and uncertain, to embrace the connection that had grown from chaos into trust. "I want that too," she said, her voice steady now, filled with quiet determination. From that moment, their relationship changed. It wasn't about boss and employee, or apologies and mistakes. It was about two people who had found each other unexpectedly, drawn together by honesty, recognition, and shared understanding. Each day brought small gestures of care, shared laughter, and the comfort of companionship. The once chaotic events of her firing became a distant memory, replaced by the quiet thrill of something new, hopeful and deeply personal. Emily began to see life differently. Her mornings were lighter, her steps more confident, her work more inspired because of the connection she had found. Daniel, too, felt a shift, his focus no longer solely on the company, but on the rare, precious bond he had discovered with Emily. Their story, born from a mistake, grew into something neither had expected. It was not rushed, not forced, but carefully nurtured, built on honesty, attention, and the courage to feel deeply. Emily realized that sometimes life's hardest moments, the ones that leave you reeling and unsure, can also lead to the most meaningful connections. One night, sitting together on a park bench under a sky full of stars, Daniel whispered, "Emily, sometimes the world doesn't let go of you when you're meant to matter. And you matter more than I can ever say." Emily smiled, feeling a quiet joy, a sense of belonging she had not known in years. She took his hand, letting the warmth of the gesture settle deep in her heart. "And you matter to me," she replied softly. The rain, the city, the chaos of life, it all faded into the background. What mattered was here, in this moment, in this connection that had begun with a mistake, grown through honesty, and blossomed into something real, tender, and full of hope for Emily and Daniel. The worst day of her life, the firing, the uncertainty. The fear had led to the most unexpected gift, the discovery of each other, a bond that promised warmth, trust, and the beginning of a shared story that neither would forget. Sometimes, the story life writes for us is not the one we expect. But when it's right, it's undeniable. And it can turn even heartbreak into a journey toward love, understanding, and a future filled with promise. And as Emily walked home that night, hand in hand with Daniel, she realized that this was just the beginning of everything she had been waiting for.